Let's start on Boeing there, Bill, because we do have this tentative deal between Boeing and its striking members. It sounds like would notch up pay by 35% over 4 years. Bill, is that about roughly what you expected? And what's the chances you think rank and file really do approve this bill?
First of all, this is a very lucrative settlement. It's almost 9% per year. They're giving a $7,000 signing bonus too. So I think Boeing had to do it to get people back to work. They desperately need to get the cash flow from aircraft coming off the production lines. Their customers are demanding that they get the aircraft. So I think they had no choice but to settle it. But it's a far more lucrative settlement than you would expect in a 2% inflation environment. But I'm glad they got it settled. That's strike number one. Now I think the odds are reasonably high. The union's not voted to endorse it, but the union leadership. But now the union rank and file have on Wednesday to decide that. But at the same time they come out of their earnings, it's going to be a bloodbath. And Kelly Ortberg, to his credit, is going to clean house and get rid of all of the unrecognized liabilities they had in the defense business and a lot of other stuff that had kind of been buried in Boeing's finances. So I think he's right to do that, try to get as much as he can behind him. But that doesn't take away their financial problem. They still have a huge cash flow problem and a balance sheet problem. This is a result of 20 years of stock buybacks at very high prices. So he's right to go out and get the $10 billion in new equity, but let's recognize he's doing that. He has to do it at a much lower price. Boeing stock's down 59% from where it was 6 years ago before they had the second crash. So, they were buying back stock at very high prices. Mm-hmm. They're now going to have to go put equity in stock at much lower prices. So that's the reality of what happens when you play the short-term financial game and don't take into account the long-term nature of Boeing's business.
Well, I think that's an excellent point, because you go back to the 90s, it was still considered an engineer's company, and with all the buybacks and everything over the years, they might have lost sight of, well, they did lose sight of a lot. How do they get back there? And do you think that they are on course to potentially get back there, given all these changes that we see as imminent?
Here's Kelly Ortberg's job. He's got to handle these short-term problems and pacify his customers to try to get them today's aircraft, but he's got to commit to the long term. David Calhoun did not do that. He worked short-term problems, and they seem to get worse. I think he's got to go with the longer-term things. He's moved his home back to Seattle. Now he's got to move the whole company back to Seattle. That's part of the reason for the strike, because the workers really feel abandoned. They're angry. They feel like Boeing has abandoned aviation excellence in design and quality. So I think moving the headquarters back. Second, he needs to announce a new single-aisle aircraft. The 737 was designed 60 years ago, and we have new engine, new avionics, but we need a whole new airframe design that takes into account all the modern technologies. And I think it's a travesty they haven't done that. They haven't invested. That's an 8 or 9 to 10-year project, but they've got to get started. They've just lost 5 years of not getting started, and so now's the time to move on that. And then finally, I think he's got to rebuild the whole culture around excellence in design and quality. And that's going to mean relooking at the whole supply chain. They tried to go asset light and farm out their supply chain to other people and spun off Spirit their fuselage design. Now they have to buy that back for $4.7 billion, a lot of money, but they have no choice. So they need to look at the whole supply chain and redo it and get the emphasis back on quality and excellence in design.